Chapter 1 of the Adventures of Peregrine Pickle, Volume 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Martin Geeson. The Adventures of Peregrine Pickle, Volume 1, by Tobias Smollett. Chapter 1. An account of Mr. Gamaliel Pickle. The disposition of his sister described. He yields to her solicitations and returns to the country. In a certain county of England, bounded on one side by the sea, and at the distance of 100 miles from the metropolis, lived Gamaliel Pickle, Esquire, the father of that hero whose fortunes we propose to record. He was the son of a merchant in London, who, like Rome, from small beginnings, had raised himself to the highest honours of the city, and acquired a plentiful fortune, though, to his infinite regret, he died before it amounted to a plum, conjuring his son, as he respected the last injunction of a parent, to imitate his industry, and adhere to his maxims, until he should have made up the deficiency, which was a sum considerably less than £15,000. This pathetic remonstrance had the desired effect upon his representative, who spared no pains to fulfil the request of the deceased, but exerted all the capacity with which nature had endowed him in a series of efforts, which, however, did not succeed; for by the time he had been 15 years in trade, he found himself £5,000 worse than he was when he first took possession of his father's effects, a circumstance that affected him so nearly as to detach his inclinations from business, and induce him to retire from the world to some place where he might at leisure deplore his misfortunes, and by frugality secure himself from want and the apprehensions of a jail, with which his imagination was incessantly haunted. He was often heard to express his fears of coming upon the parish, and to bless God that, on account of his having been so long a housekeeper, he was entitled to that provision. In short, his talents were not naturally active, and there was a sort of inconsistency in his character; for with all the desire of amassing which any citizen could possibly entertain, he was encumbered by a certain indolence and sluggishness that prevailed over every interested consideration, and even hindered him from profiting by that singleness of apprehension and moderation of appetites which have so frequently conduced to the acquisition of immense fortunes, qualities which he possessed in a very remarkable degree. Nature, in all probability, had mixed little or nothing inflammable in his composition, or whatever seeds of excess she might have sown within him were effectually stifled and destroyed by the austerity of his education. The sallies of his youth, far from being inordinate or criminal, never exceeded the bounds of that decent jollity which an extraordinary pot, on extraordinary occasions, may be supposed to have produced in a club of sedate bookkeepers, whose imaginations were neither very warm nor luxuriant. Little subject to refined sensations, he was scarce ever disturbed with violent emotions of any kind. The passion of love never interrupted his tranquillity, and if, as Mr. Creech says, after Horace, "Not to admire is all the art I know, to make men happy, and to keep them so," Mr. Pickle was undoubtedly possessed of that invaluable secret. At least, he was never known to betray the faintest symptom of transport, except one evening at the club, where he observed, with some demonstrations of vivacity, that he had dined upon a most delicate loin of veal. Notwithstanding this appearance of phlegm, he could not help feeling his disappointments in trade, and upon the failure of a certain underwriter, by which he lost £500, declared his design of relinquishing business and retiring to the country. In this resolution he was comforted and encouraged by his only sister, Mrs. Grizzle, who had managed his family since the death of his father, and was now in the 30th year of her maidenhood, with a fortune of £5,000 and a large stock of economy and devotion. These qualifications, one would think,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?